Hi, welcome to Livewire at Home. I'm at home, you're at home. We have a great episode for you today. We are talking about frustration. So, in this time during the coronavirus and during all the social distancing, we have to be frustrated. So, this would be a great episode for you. But there are three things that I want you to know about what we do at Livewire at Home. First, this is for families to do together. So, kids, pause the video, go get your family, bring them all together. Let's do this together as a family. Second, this is one that with activities and things to do. So, pause the video when I tell you to pause it. Do the activity, have fun. That will increase your enjoyment of this episode so much. And three, share. Be a part of this. Make this a community, Livewire at Home community, by commenting and liking and sharing this video. How should you begin? Well, I have a suggestion for two songs. The first is My God is So Big by Go Fish. The second is He Is Alive by Sandalback Kids. There are links in the description below. You will love worshiping with their song. Now that you've worshiped, let's begin with a discussion question. What is your favorite game and your least favorite game to play? Talk about it as a family and comment below. Frustration is that anger that builds up inside of us when we can't get what we want. When we're trying to accomplish something and get something done and we just can't. This last year, I've been frustrated over and over again. See, it took me a year to find the children's ministry job that I'm in now. And it took over 200 interviews of people saying no and no and no for me to finally find this role. And you can imagine how frustrating it is because there was nothing else I wanted to do. We all have frustrations. We all get frustrated, and frustration is not a sin. It is not wrong. But frustration makes us do bad things. So the Bible is filled with examples of people who were frustrated and then did something wrong. Take Moses, who was so frustrated by the constant complaining and grumbling of the Israelites that at one moment he lashed out in anger, and instead of doing what God commanded, which was to speak to a rock for water to come out, he said, "You stupid Israelites, look at this." And he smashed it with his staff and water came out. But he disobeyed God. He made it about himself because he was so frustrated. And because of that, he wasn't able to go into the promised land. So our frustrations can make us do really bad things. And I bet you have an example in your mind of a time when your frustrations made you do something that you shouldn't have done. Pause the video, talk about when was a time that your frustration made you do something wrong, made you sin. Talk about it together as a family, and if you have a great funny story about that, go ahead and comment that. Today, I don't want to talk about someone whose frustration caused them to sin. I want to talk about someone who must have been frustrated with where his life had gone after years and years and years, and yet he still trusted in God, and God ended up making it a great thing. That story is Joseph. And the whole theme of Joseph's story can be summed up what he said to his brothers at the very end of his life. He told them, what you meant for evil, God meant for good, the saving of many lives. Now, I want you to be a part of this, so I want you to draw, like a comic book, the events in Joseph's life. So, pause the video, go find a blank piece of paper and some crayons and some colored pencils. So, you got your blank piece of paper, your crayons, your markers, your colored pencil. I want you to draw on your paper a grid of 6 boxes, just like here, with a couple lines down and one line through the middle, so you have 6 boxes. Now, I want you, just like you see, to put a little number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 down at the bottom. Got it? Now, in box number 1, the first scene in Joseph's life, I want you to draw the sun and the moon and 12 stars bowing down to Joseph. Joseph was the second youngest of 12 brothers, and he was his father's Jacob's favorite son. Jacob treated him especially amazing. He gave him a very special, expensive coat that he didn't give to any of his brothers. He showed favoritism to Joseph all the time, and Joseph, in turn, tattled on all his brothers all the time. So if you have a little brother or sister who tattles on you, I bet you know exactly how mad and how frustrated Joseph's brothers are right now. They were angry. And one night, Joseph had a dream. He dreamed that 11 of his brothers' wheats came up to him and bowed down to him. And then the next night, he dreamed that the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down to him. And he told all his brothers and all his families that I dreamed that you guys bowed down to me. And you can imagine how much more frustrated that made his brothers. So one day, his brothers were out taking care of the sheep. And Joseph came up to him. All right, if you aren't finished with that picture, go ahead and pause it, finish it, because I'm going to tell you right now the second picture I want you to draw. All right, you ready? I want you to now draw Joseph at the bottom of a big hole. When Joseph got closer, his brothers jumped on him, grabbed him, took off his coat, and tossed him over into the pit. And Joseph fell down into the deep pit, and it was dark and lonely and frustrating. A little bit later, Joseph's brothers saw a group of Midianites heading to Egypt to sell some things, and they thought, why don't we make some money off our brother and sell him to be a slave? So that's what they did. Imagine if you're Joseph sitting at the bottom of it, and all of a sudden your brothers throw a rope down and you're like, finally it's over, I'll be fine. They pull you up only for you to see a group of strangers there, and you see that they have sold you to be a slave, and off you go. So Joseph went to become a slave of Potiphar. And if you aren't done with Joseph in the pit, your second box, go ahead and pause and finish up and come back to this. Now in the third box, I want you to draw Joseph in jail. How did he get in jail? Well, Joseph was a slave to Potiphar, and actually things were going well. Even though it must have been really frustrating to be a slave, Joseph kept working hard, and he did what he was supposed to do. He did the job he was supposed to do, and Potiphar was very happy with him, and he ended up becoming second in charge of Potiphar's house with all these responsibilities. But Potiphar's wife lied about Joseph and got Joseph into trouble. She said that he did something horrible to her that made Potiphar very, very angry. So Potiphar took Joseph and threw him in jail. Man, how frustrating. It was horrible being a slave, but at least you were out moving around and you had some life. You were gaining responsibility, and now you're back in the bottom of a jail, stuck. Man, how frustrated that was for Joseph. But Joseph kept trusting in God, and he kept doing what needed to be done. And pretty soon, the jailer was so impressed by Joseph that he put him in charge of taking care of the other prisoners. And while he was there, he met two people, a baker and a wine taster. And they both had these horrible dreams at night that really scared them. And they wanted to know what those dreams meant. So Joseph went up and asked them, "Hey, what's wrong?" And the baker and the wine taster told Joseph their dreams. And Joseph, by the power that God gave him, was able to tell them what the dreams meant. And for one, the baker, it meant that he was going to die. But for the wine taster, it meant that he was going to be restored, brought back to his job, and everything was going to be good. He was going to work with the Pharaoh again. And Joseph told the wine taster, "Hey, tell the Pharaoh about me." But years and years passed without the wine taster telling Pharaoh about Joseph. Now, if you haven't finished drawing Joseph in jail, go ahead and pause it, finish it, and then come back. In box number 4, I want you to draw 7 big cows and 7 scrawny little cows. So in box number 4, draw 7 big cows and 7 scrawny cows. What does that have to do with the story? Well, one night, while Joseph was still in prison, the Pharaoh of Egypt had this dream. He had a dream that there were 7 big, full cows that were as big as any in the land, that had a lot of meat on them. And then 7 really skinny cows came along and ate all 7 of the big cows, ate them whole. And yet, even after eating the whole cow, they were still skinny and scrawny. And Pharaoh woke up, and he was afraid because he didn't know what it meant. And he became frustrated with all the people who were supposed to be able to tell him what the dream meant, because no one could tell him what the dream meant. And that is when the wine taster remembered what Joseph did for him. And he told him that Joseph was able to interpret his dreams. So they went and got Joseph out of prison, brought him before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said, "Hey, can you interpret my dreams for me?" And Joseph said, "I can't, but my God can." And so Pharaoh told him his dream. And Joseph was able to interpret it and know that it would mean that there would be 7 years of a great abundance of food. Plenty of rain where they can make all this kind of food. But after that, there is going to become 7 years of a horrible drought where food couldn't be found anywhere. So Joseph suggested to take some of the grain each year in the 7 good years and save it for the bad years so that they would have plenty of food left after 7 years of bad drought. And so Pharaoh was so impressed both with the fact that Joseph was able to interpret his dream and that he had an amazing, wise plan for what to do, how to solve this big problem that was coming, that Joseph became second in command in all of Egypt. Now, if you haven't finished your drawing of the 7 big cows and the 7 skinny cows. Go ahead and pause the video and then come back. In box number 5, I want you to draw Joseph's brothers bowing down to him. So, after the 7 good years had passed and the drought came, Joseph's brothers and Joseph's family got hit by the drought too. And they didn't have food saved up, but they heard that there was food in Egypt because of what Joseph was doing. And so they came to Egypt. At the very end, he finally met his brothers. He finally said, "I'm Joseph." And they cried and they hugged and they brought all of Joseph's family, all his brothers, his dad, all came from Canaan, where they were, all back to Egypt, where they were taken care of during the 7 years of famine. And eventually, Joseph's father, Jacob, passed away. And Joseph's brothers began to become very scared. They were worried. They thought maybe Joseph was only kind to them and didn't do something wrong because of his frustration, because his dad was alive and he knew his dad wouldn't want it. But since his dad is dead, they thought maybe all that frustration would have built up in him and maybe he might destroy us. So they went up to Joseph and said, "Our dad told us that you need to keep taking care of us," which was a lie. But Joseph said, "You don't have anything to be afraid of. See, I'm not ruled by anger or frustration. Instead, this is what I know, that what you meant for evil, God meant for good." And that's what I want you to write in that last box. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Because Joseph was able to not live in frustration, to not have that frustration make him do sin. Because he could have, in frustration, killed all his brothers. He could have done something horrible. He could have made them slaves or thrown them in jail if he was really frustrated and angry enough. But he was not ruled by frustration. Instead, because he saw how God brought good things out of bad situations, he kept trusting in God. I want to share with you a verse that really helps me when I am frustrated to remember how God is good and how he brings out good things. It's Zephaniah 3:17, and it says this: "The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you in singing." In the description, click the link Zephaniah 3:17 by Seeds Family Worship. That is a great song to help you remember and help you sing this truth to yourself in frustrating times. Now it's time to take a little break, play a little game. I want you guys to play charades. So you can use some details in the story, something that happened in the story, or anything that you want. Act it out and have the people in your family guess what you are doing. Welcome back from charades. I hope you had a lot of fun. I want you guys to take a moment and talk about what about this whole social distancing, this whole being apart from everybody is making you super frustrated. And if you have a great answer, comment in the comments below. So here are some things that you can do when you are frustrated. The first, as we've already talked about from Joseph's story, is to remember that God is good, that God has a good plan for your life, that He's able to take what is evil and to turn it good. So remember that. Remember the truth of Zephaniah 3:17. The second thing that you can do is to notice your body. So when you're frustrated, your fists might clench up. You might breathe faster. You might stand in a weird, uptight, like this. So if you know that that's how your body reacts when frustrated, just pause and make your body do the opposite of what it's doing. So if your fists are clenched up and you're feeling all clenched, start wiggling your fingers around. If your back is getting tighter and tighter, slouch a bit. Loosen up. Shake it off. And you'll find that when you can release, do the opposite of what your body wants to do, you'll start to feel better. So, what does your body do when you are frustrated? Pause this video, talk about it with your family, and comment below with your answers. And 3, you can find a safe way to release that anger out. There's no sense trying to hold it back. Instead, you want to go to a place where it's safe to release the anger. Maybe you go in your room and you take a pillow and you scream into the pillow. Or maybe you find a punching bag and you punch into the punching bag. What are some safe ways that you know that you can release your anger? Pause the video, talk about it as a family, and then comment with your best answers below. Last but not least, you can talk to someone who is calm. So remember good truths about God. Do the opposite of what your body's doing when you're frustrated. Take a moment to release the anger in a safe spot, and then talk to someone who's also calm, and they can help you calm down. What are some other ways that you can think of to release your frustration? Go ahead and talk about it as a family, then comment with your best answers below. Hey, after this, you might want to get a snack. So a great way to have a great snack to remind you about Joseph's story is, remember we talked about him getting that fancy multicolored coat? Well, you can take a graham cracker, spread some frosting over it, and take the M&Ms or Skittles or whatever multicolored candy that you have and add it to that, and now you have a multicolored coat to eat as a snack to remember Joseph's story as a family. Before we end, I want to check to see where we are in the challenge. You have 69,775 points. Way to go. When we get to 100,000 points and when we're able to be back together again, we'll have a big family game night. How do we get to 100,000 points? Well, first, your memory verse. Every memory verse is worth 1,000 points. Practice our monthly memory verse. The memory verse song is in the description below. The last screen on the page will be that memory verse, so you can pause it there and work on it together. Second, share this video on Facebook. By sharing this video, that is 5,000 points. So share the video, get 5,000 points. And third is Julie's challenge. If you remember any of Julie's challenge, take a video of yourself doing it and post it using the hashtag bringing the hope. And fourth is bring the hope. We have in the description a link to a wall chart of 40 great ways that you can bring the hope. Comment below with a way that you have brought the hope, that you have shown kindness this season, and that is 500 points each. Before I go, I want to give a little announcement, something that came up in my email as I was shooting this. It is the Quarantine Family live event, a live stream event created for parents and grandparents. And the speakers include Jonathan Bakes, Dana Grosh, Tina Hauser, Phil Vischer, and many more. An awesome great lineup for parenting advice. What to do during this quarantine time. It is Monday, March 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern. The link will be in the descriptions. I encourage you to check it out. I know this group, they're amazing speakers. You won't want to miss it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you can, in this frustrating time, learn to trust in God's goodness, because He really is good. If you are already starting to see how God is taking what seems like evil and turning it for good, go ahead and comment those great things below. Can't wait to see you on Wednesday at 4:30 with our next Livewire at Home. See you then. Bye.